Hey fly tiers, welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to tie this little egg sucking leech. This is one that I'm tying up for a client right now for some pike. So I thought I would share that with you guys in a quick live video. So I'm just going to take that out of the vise. So for a hook, I'm going to be using a 4XL number 4. And this one is a Talon 4x long, and the number is the ST2224X, and those were distributed by Superfly, no longer. I'm going to be using some beads here today. So for this, I like using these trope beads just because you get a nice range of colors, and you get some of these ones with some iridescence on them. Looks a little bit more natural. I'm going to take one of those beads, and these ones I get from North Shore. And so for this, I'm going to need one of these flat pins. This is something I got from a craft store from Michael's. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but basically it's got this little end there so that the bead isn't going to slide past there. So we'll put a little bit of a kink in that, just bend that kind of there so that when we lash that on, we can maybe push it up just a bit, just so that we can kind of still have access to the eye of the hook. Okay, so we're going to put on some black thread here. Just put that on just as an undercoat. Trim off that. And one thing you might find useful is just to have a pair of pliers to kind of help bend that. I'm going to add just a little bit of Solares, or some UV resin just to the end of that to secure it, and a little bit just to that back side there, just to kind of lock it a little bit. I don't think that's going to do too much. It'll just stop it from moving around and putting too much pressure on there. On that bead, it can pop off that metal part, so just in case that fails, we've got a tiny bit of a backup. Looks good. So pop that on top here. I'm just going to push it out a tiny bit from the actual eye, and then we'll start tying that down with touching wraps. So if you have a pair of wire cutters, they would be really handy right about now. Just come in here with the side cutters. Actually, trim that down a tiny bit more if we can. And then we can use our pliers. We'll push that down. Maybe, maybe not. All right, so we'll just cover that with some thread. Just make sure you don't cut your thread on that sharp piece. You might want to actually trim that up before you lash that. That's probably what we'll end up doing next time. All right. Cool. So for the tail on this, we're going to be using a super strip. So this is a piece of rabbit that's cut twice the regular width. So I've got a regular piece of rabbit on the bottom and one of the super strips up top. That gives you a nice wide profile for the tail. And so what I do for this is I just stick my scissors under here, kind of pull all the hairs back and just kind of trim those out, or pull them out, just so we have a nice piece of leather to tie into. And we'll just take our thread up a little bit. And we'll tie that, excuse me, tie that leather down. And I like to tie it into the hair just a little bit. I don't want all the hair tied down, just a small amount of it is fine. And the length, you can just trim that off where you want it. And if you want to, you can taper this back end. So just kind of come in here at a bit of an angle. Just kind of want to get underneath the hair. I don't know if that makes too much of a difference, but helps just kind of taper off the tail of the fly a little bit. So now I'll move on to the body. So for the body, I don't want to tie in a super strip for this because it's just a little too thick. So what I am going to do, I'm going to use a piece of regular zonker or crosscut, and I'm going to tie it upside down, and then I'm just going to twist that and then palmer it forward just so that the hairs stick out and get a nice pulsing action from that. Okay, so again, I'm going to just take my scissors under here and we'll just take off a little bit of that hair, just we don't want to lash down too much. And we're going to turn that upside down. And right at the base of the tail, we'll start tying that in. If you want to add a little bit of weight to this fly, probably you go ahead and do that. We're not going to weight this one. And we'll take that right up just behind the bead here. So kind of the same as when I'm palmering a feather. I want to make sure that all that hair is kind of sweeping back. So I'll pull everything back as I wrap. And I just want to kind of wrap it so that the leather goes edge to edge. And if it overlaps a tiny bit, that's okay. You don't want it to overlap too much though. As you start to bind down some of that hair. And we'll just do that till we get right up to the eye. And then on this last wrap, we just want to kind of pull the hair down a little bit. And we'll wrap that. And you just want to kind of isolate so that you can get into that leather. And there you go. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up the head of the fly a little bit. And I like to tie it just a little bit back just to kind of secure that last bit of leather. But once this gets wet, it's a really great kind of egg-sucking leech pattern. We'll go ahead, put a whip finish on here. pull everything back. Give it a spot of glue. And there you go. I'm going to let that dry up a little bit. Then we're going to take it out and test it on some pike and bass.